Hello and welcome everybody to the second episode of the Nerdy Dad Bodcast. My name's Levi Bullard and I'm your host and Dark Lord. So today we're going to go over what is D&D and is it just for 40-year-old virgins in your mom's basement? Let's find out. Now, most people when they think about D&D, they either think about some nerds sitting in their mother's basement or a bunch of little kids gathered around a table and playing make believe. And you're pretty much correct, except D&D has become a lot more popular nowadays with the evolution of online virtual tabletops that allow people to play from across the world to the breakout success of Critical Role and their live streams. D&D has become so popular, and I would say it's edging on mainstream. Now, that doesn't help us in explaining what actually is D&D or what is Dungeons and Dragons. Now, to that I would say it's a tabletop role-playing game. Essentially what that means is you're going to play on top of a table with dice or little miniature characters, maybe some terrain if you want to go that far, and you're going to role play a character or two or however many, depending on, you might be the DM. That brings me to how many people play D&D? Well, usually you need a minimum of at least 2 people. When you start D&D, you have, let's say, 3 players and then 1 dungeon master, so 4 players in total. Your dungeon master is going to explain the world, say the setting you're in, and they're going to tell you what all the other people that are not your characters are doing and how they interact with you. They're essentially going to role play the entire world that isn't your character. Then what do the players do? They play their characters. That's simple enough, right? If I were to ask you, or tell you, you're sitting at a bar, taking a sip of your ale after a long, hard day, and this guy, human, very burly in stature, walks up to you and says, "You're sitting in my seat. Move." What would you do? If you can answer that, if you had a thought in your head, you're playing D&D right now. That is exactly what Dungeons and Dragons is. Because guess what? All those video games that you've played that the mechanics wouldn't allow you to do certain things, D&D's not like that. D&D, you can do whatever you want, and the only limiting factors is your imagination and your dungeon master's discretion. Sorry, the DM's kind of the ultimate rules when it comes to this game. Even the Dungeon Master Guide says that the rules are optional. The Dungeon Master has the final say. Which is what's awesome about this game. If something doesn't fit your playstyle or your friend's playstyle, you can change it. You can play this game however you want it to be. Now, that seems very whimsical and fun and a lot to throw at people. So then, how do you get started? You start by making your own character. Now, that's a whole nother topic that we will address in another video, and probably one of the first few. And you might be saying, well, I'm sorry, I'm not into all the, medieval dragons and knights and things like that. And to that, you don't have to be, because you can have any type of world. Are you into steampunk, anime, Star Wars? All of those things have their own version in D&D. D&D has been around for so long, and so many people in this hobby are so creative that we have found ways to fit the mechanics to almost anything. And there's already a world out there for that. Now, if you don't want that, or you think that's too much, like I kind of do, to read through these pre-made adventure books and learn all of what people have already written for you, well, then you can just create a world yourself. What do you want to call that town? What's in that town? Is there a blacksmith? Is there an evil ruler who, is slaying people on the daily because they threw off his groove. If you got the reference there, take it. Well, that's what I'm saying is you can make it all up on your own. That's what I did. And I have multiple continents, tens of multiple cities, and 30 god pantheon. Like, I love it. But that's me. To each his own. You can go with the pre-created modules, or you can create your own homebrew campaign. You can come up with all your own rules, or you can just follow the books. You can do a mix of all of them. So this is just a starting guide to D&D, telling you kind of what is it, what can you do, and to hopefully get you a little bit interested and not so overwhelmed with what Dungeons & Dragons really is. And hopefully I've shown you that even though it is kind of nerdy, and I mean, that's why it's talked about on this podcast, is everybody can find a way to enjoy it. If you guys have any questions or want to know where to start, you can always go pick up the Player's Handbook. If you want, I can tell you it's usually on sale at Target for about $27, or pick it up at your local game store if you want to support a local store, which I definitely do suggest if you have the funds. If not, go ahead and check it out at Target. Until next time, remember, peace is a lie. There is only passion.